Hello, and welcome to another episode of Hacking with Friends. My name is Kody Kinsey. I'm a security researcher at Varonis, and today my co-host, again, because Michael is still missing from his cryptozoology conference, although there's a lot of activity from his bank account from Brazil slowly draining it, so it seems like he's fine, and the hunt for Bigfoot has just taken him to new grounds. We have our substitute host, James. James, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me again.
Yeah, of course. So we are continuing on with our series covering different hacker operating systems. James, what are we going to be taking a look at today?
Manjaro.
So our last operating system we looked at was BlackArch. How does this stack up compared to that?
So they're both based on Arch, but while BlackArch didn't even update out of the box because of a dependency conflict, Manjaro is probably the most kind of mainstream Arch derivative operating system. It's much easier to install. It's completely graphical, and it's designed to kind of be competitive. It's designed for people to switch from like Windows or Mac to it, which I don't personally think it's ready for yet, but it's definitely in the right direction, and I think it's better than, it's sort of similar space to Ubuntu, but Ubuntu is a bit more clunky, in my opinion.
I was going to make a kind of similar comparison. Like, this is, if you like Arch Linux, like if you think Arch is cool as like an infrastructure, like you like the backend stuff, then this is like the Ubuntu of Arch distributions. Like, it's got all the stuff you would expect a beginner to want and need, and also the installation process is geared towards people who maybe don't want to do a bunch of manual partitioning and accidentally overwrite their hard drive, like, or have the risk of that be like part of the process. So for me, I was looking for an operating system that was not Debian based, that was Linux, that had all the tools I needed, that also wasn't going to be, too steep of a learning curve to just try some stuff out and see if I liked it. And aside from some of the installation stuff where you just need to learn a couple new tools in order to do an installation, which again comes with the territory of having different package managers, I found that Manjaro was the friendliest operating system, Linux-based operating system I have ever installed. It just worked really well. I was even able to do some light gaming on it, as James discovered.
Yeah, so another thing is that Manjaro actually comes like pre-installed with Steam and the stuff you need to run the games that are supported by, I think Steam calls it the Proton Project or something like that. I don't know what they call it, but yeah, so you can run a couple of supported games. Mostly it's the ones with anti-cheat that don't work, but more and more games are working on Linux, and it's set up out of the box to do that for you, so it's pretty nice.
Yes, I used to play a lot of like older games too. So I would play like old, like I would play Alpha Centauri, and I played like civilization-based games. And those old Windows games actually work just fine on it, because there's something called Play on Linux, which is able to run these old games perfectly fine and just use them. So I actually used to use Manjaro almost exclusively to like play like Alpha Centauri from like 1999, because like it just runs really well on it, like even better than trying to use an emulator. Because basically I can't get that game to really run on my macOS system very well. And like this just seemed to be the best way of doing it. So I was surprised that for an Arch-based distribution, being able to, try to play like a, I guess now retro game, was not hard at all. It actually just like worked really easily. And if I don't know, like Arch just has a reputation for being kind of like more for advanced people and a little bit more difficult. So I was just amazed that it was as easy, if not easier, than doing the same process on Ubuntu. So yeah, I was just impressed by the fact that this really is much more for beginners than, for example, BlackArch, which we just covered was. So if you were intimidated a little bit by BlackArch, then yeah, this is definitely might be maybe your flavor if you want like a GUI. Because frankly, like, it can be a little bit annoying to not be able to have a GUI when you need it. If you need to run Wireshark or do something that's a little bit more interactive, then being restricted to just command line can be a bit annoying when there's a tool you want to use that doesn't work that way.
But also, as we'll cover, you can actually add because they're both Arch derivative, you can add the BlackArch repository to Manjaro and install packages from the repository extremely easily. So
right, so
but it's a nice system.
So one of the benefits of the BlackArch install that we did last time was getting access to all the tools that are included in the repository. as James just pointed out, you can just get all those same tools in a beginner-friendly operating system. So you're kind of getting like all the incredible tools included in BlackArch, minus the kind of like learning curve and kind of, I guess, just gap for beginners in getting started with the system. And instead, you can have this like kind of weaponized, user-friendly Arch installation that is quite easy to get started with and use. So I love that combination, but in my experience, there's a downside to this that I kind of have to preface that. And James, what do you think I might be just talking about when it comes to weaponizing an operating system like Manjaro with the BlackArch repository?
What you mean, BlackArch is going to cause problems?
Yeah, exactly. So when I did this, my operating system lasted for maybe 8 months without any sort of problems. And then there started to be conflicts. There just started to be packages that were like duplicated or like otherwise like had like just issues that needed to be resolved in some way that just wasn't working with any sort of process I could find. And the operating system kind of slowly tore itself apart over a period of time. James, do you know any more technical way of describing that? Because I feel like I'm just kind of glossing over like what the problem is here.
I mean, I get what you're saying, but basically, if you have two repositories that I guess you can get the same stuff from sometimes, you may eventually end up with conflicts, even if you have dependencies that are conflicting and it's trying to get certain dependencies from different repositories. But the alternative to this, and you don't even have to actually use BlackArch to get a lot of these sort of security tools on Arch Linux, because you have what's called the Arch user repository, which basically you can really easily just pull open source tools and build them on your machine really easily. We'll showcase it later with the Hunator. And I think that's probably how I would do it, because it's really easy to put stuff on AUR. Somebody just added the Hunator to it. They're like, yeah, here you go. And we're like, oh, thanks. So yeah, that I think that's the best way to do it on Arch. The AUR is a great tool that anybody can just add stuff to, basically.
Yeah, so using I guess using other ways of installing tools like more directly is definitely something that is easier to do in Manjaro than it is in BlackArch. The one, because there's just like fewer like cryptic errors while trying to do it. The problem I found is there are some tools that require extensive installation of other dependencies and aren't well documented. So like if you want to use one of those tools, using the pre-installed version, from the BlackArch repository might be the easiest way of installing this thing, which can be quite frustrating if, you're just trying to install one tool, it's not well documented, there's a lot of other stuff you have to install, and you're getting these weird error messages. Like, whereas in Kali Linux, it might just be like apt install this tool, and all that stuff kind of comes packaged along as one, and you don't need to go through the process of installing it yourself. Because I found this can be very frustrating for people who want to install a tool and just find that like the actual installation process is kind of much more complicated than they anticipated. So there's some reasons why it can be a better option to just dump in the entire BlackArch repo and then, just spin down the virtual machine and create a new one, like when you need it from a template or something like that. Like that might be a solution. And then, if you're not using the operating system consistently for 8 months, then it's never an issue. But yeah, I found that while this is a beautiful user experience and I really like it, it does have issues over the long term when you drop in a different repository that's pulling different sources and stuff and might have different versions of things available. That will cause issues because then you'll have two different versions of the same thing installed. And it just it can really start messing stuff up. So just keep that in mind. But that all being said, I really like Manjaro, and we're going to dive into it today by showing you guys how to use it in two different potential environments. One of them is bare metal, meaning you're just installing it, on a computer without virtualizing it all. You're just installing it on the hard drive. And the second would be virtualizing it or putting it on a USB live boot disk so that you're not permanently installing it. You're either virtualizing it or just booting from a medium so that you can use the computer's resources without actually installing it to disk. James, which order do you want to go in?
We can run through the virtual machine first if you like, because we don't. Yeah, I mean, up to you. Actually, I don't mind. They're both really easy, to be honest with you, and they don't differ very much. So.
Okay, well, let's switch over to your screen and get started then. Let's go and oh yeah, I guess start at the Manjaro homepage.
Yeah. So, if you start at manjaro.org, The first thing you get is this big download button, or the more there's information about lots of stuff that you can read. But the other nice thing about Manjaro is there's several official desktop environments, and they have kind of videos for each one here. And then this is just a CLI version, but there's also some community editions that you can get. So there's lots and lots of desktop environments that you can use
That
on
is
Manjaro.
so that is actually super confusing to a beginner. Can you explain like what this even is, or like why it matters which one you choose?
I honestly, I'm not going to do it much justice, but so you have an operating system, at least in Linux, and then you can install different kind of desktop environments on top of those, which are going to have some kind of functionality differences, but also, I think is it mostly aesthetic? Is that fair to say? Things
It's
will
aesthetic,
look
and then
things
the
will
way
look
that
different,
it handles like
but
windows and like things like that.
yeah, so things will look different and that sort of stuff, but the underlying sort of operating system, the packages, or the repository that Manjaro uses, and it's still Arch, so that will be the same across all of these desktop environments. But
Right, and I would.
for this I just got the XFCE because it
Oh,
was at the
really? You're
top.
not getting KDE?
No, I just went for the one at the top.
Okay, that's fine. I mean, it's just like there's so many benefits using KDE. It just seems weird that you'd use XFCE, but okay, that's fine.
Go on, please tell me the benefits of KDE.
I'm just kidding. So, like, some of these will be a lighter weight environment, so that can be something that you care about if you want something really lightweight that doesn't, take a lot of resources. If you have a computer that's like really low on resources, then maybe you want to use one over another. For example, I was installing this on a really old laptop, on the original laptop I had it on. So I chose to go with KDE just because, from what I was told from my friend who uses Arch and talks about it a lot, it was the better environment for my particular setup. But yeah, so like this is something where there's tons of like small trade-offs with using like different GUI environments. So if you don't like one, you can pick another, and there's plenty of different debate as to which one is better. I'm sure the people in our comments are throwing out which is their favorite and defending it. So hopefully we've triggered some sort of discussion on that, because all of them are fine. They all work more or less the same, but they'll have different footprints. So some of them will be basically meant to run on lighter weight hardware. So, like a Chromebook or something stupid that like doesn't have much power.
i3.
Yeah, sure.
Exactly. It's the best one, I'm telling you. So what do you want to do first?
So, all right. So once you select the environment, then what's the next step?
So you would hit this, and then it takes you to a download page where you download an ISO, is what you do. You can download it by torrent or just from their website directly. Can also do a minimal version, which I guess is just a smaller download that has more stuff you'll install down the line.
Is there an OVA file for Manjaro?
I didn't look for one, but I didn't see one.
Okay. It's just
So
useful to note.
I'm sure you could find one in the kind of community stuff, but no, it's not like advertised, at least. I think it's mainly meant to actually like be an operating system you run. So most people are running Manjaro are usually either running it exclusively or dual booting it.
Um,
So,
Interesting. Okay, yeah, I'm just looking around. It looks like there's a open source project of some sort that like has like osboxes.com. Looks like it has an OVA file. So it looks like there is some stuff out there if you're interested in an OVA file. And again, the trade-off with OVA is just like you have a frozen version of this that has all the settings and dials ticked. So you just load this into VirtualBox or whatever program you want to virtualize it with, and boom, you have the ability to just have it up and running without installing it. But it is a massive file, usually, anyway. This one actually seems it's like 1.56 gigabytes, so yeah.
it's not that bad.
It's not that bad, yeah. But anyway, so that's available out there, and once you have that, then I imagine we'll be moving to a virtualization platform of choice. And we've had this debate before. I'm using Parallels because they gave it to me for free, so I would shut up about complaining to them constantly on Twitter that they should have a free version available for students so someone will care about their product and learn how to use it. But
Wait.
we're going to be using VirtualBox today because it's free. and people can get it for free and learn it. But you know, if you would just make it free for students, I sure would feature parallels on this show. Anyway,
Have they asked you to feature it?
no, but they told me they basically were like, please stop asking us in public repeatedly on an almost weekly basis to make this free for students. We're not going to, but we will give this to you for free. So you've won something. I was like, I'll take it, but I will still email you.
They won't pay for your silence.
No, they won't pay for my silence, but they will give me free software, so I'll use it. Just not on the show because, you know, make it free for students.
Fair enough. So what I'm gonna do is I'm not gonna go through the actual install process here because we're gonna do that on bare metal, which is exactly the same because we're doing both from an ISO basically.
Cool.
But what I will showcase is how you would set it up. So you would go into VirtualBox. Same things that we usually mention when using VirtualBox. You need to, you might need to go.
Sorry, wait. Could you make the computer think you're old again? Because I cannot read anything you're doing.
This thing.
Yeah, I know.
Man, I'll try not to scream this time.
It was pretty startling the way it exploded last time.
Oh gosh. Okay.
Wow. Okay, that's a bit almost too big. Almost.
Is there an option between 100% and 200%? I don't think so.
Okay, cool. Well, we'll work with this then. You might need to scroll to the side a little.
Okay, so can you see? I don't even know what you're saying, to be honest
James.
with you.
You gotta go way to the left.
Way to the left.
Yeah, there we go.
Oh,
yeah,
I see
gotcha.
what's going on.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, cool.
So, yes.
That's actually great. For us, probably not for you.
This is, this is not great. Oh, no. Every time I move my mouse in the wrong spot. So yeah, so if we were creating a new one, what we would do is we would pick a spot and then select Linux as the type, and then under version.
Does it actually have Manjaro?
It has Arch, which is Manjaro's Arch derivative.
Close
so you would say Manjaro or whatever you want to do. No, it's not Mandriva.
There's so many Linuxes.
Exactly. So yeah, and then you can pick a spot where the files are going to go. Pick your amount of RAM. You can give it as much as you want, really, as long as you're not going to starve your host OS of memory. But we went over this last time, so we're going to create a virtual disk and specify the size in a second. And we're going to use the VirtualBox disk image, which is just the default version. They have 3 here. I don't know the differences, to be honest with you.
Yeah, me neither.
And we went over this last time. Dynamically allocated means that you basically allocate a maximum size, but you only take up that space as you use it within the operating system or within the virtual machine, sorry. So you're not taking loads of space on your hard drive unnecessarily.
I was so ready to explain this over you, but you remembered from last time, and you already explained it better than I could, so never mind.
But yeah, so the only drawback is that this is a bit slower than a fixed size one because you have to allocate stuff, I guess, but yeah, it's fine, really. And you don't need a massive amount of space for this because there's not a lot of stuff in Manjaro by default, so you could probably...
So like a terabyte, right?
Yeah, a terabyte. No,
Just
you could get away with like 16 gigabytes if you wanted to for an initial install, but obviously you would run out of space eventually. So
200, right?
200 gigabytes now.
Yeah.
I think I selected the wrong type and it didn't break anything. Impressive. On the one I did earlier. So once you've done that, you can go into the settings by kind of right-clicking the find VirtualBox. You can right-click the thing, or you can click over there. And after that, what you do is you go into System. You can change your RAM allocation or allocate some more.
Oh yeah, give it all 4 cores. Oh wait, you've got 16.
We'll do 8.
Okay, great. Make it scream.
Oh, also, sorry, I was going to say, but then I think I forgot. So the usual things with VirtualBox, your virtualization may be disabled in your BIOS. Remember to enable that if you have issues. There's a thing called Windows Virtualization Platform that gets automatically enabled when you install WSL. You may need to disable that. There's a lot of different things that can go wrong here. Those are the 2 issues that I've had in the past recently that I can remember. Yes, VirtualBox, very good. So then what we do is we're going to go into the storage section, click on the empty thing or add a new one if you don't have one here. And what we're doing is creating a virtual disk. So if we click on this thing on the side over here and
Choose
we
a disk
choose
file.
a disk file,
Cool.
and then
So
you
we
find
described
your
this last
item.
time, like we're adding like a virtual like disk drive and just putting a CD into it or whatever,
Yeah, whatever it is.
an install disk.
I don't speak boomer media.
Oh my god.
It's all what do you call it? USB drives now.
Have you ever held like a
I
cassette
have
tape in your hand,
no, not a
James?
cassette. Not a cassette.
Really? Oh my
I
god.
once I once burned a CD or a DVD. That's like the most I've ever done.
Startling. All right, go on.
um, so yeah, so now we're configured, and if we then launch that, what will happen is, sorry, I'm gonna have to close out of the magnification now because it's a bit much. But yeah, so what would happen is it'll ask you to select the startup disk. We only have one available, so
Oh my god, it's so small.
not a hard choice. Sorry. Can you see that?
Yeah, can you maximize it? No, I can't. I can barely. I can't make out any of the words. Just scale it to 200 or something. Oh, sure.
It
Yeah.
automatically selected the top thing there, which is basically just launch with open source
It's
something or
looking
other.
good. Oh, there we go.
So yes, now we are starting the installer. Actually, no, it's going to take us straight into a live environment in Manjaro, and then you actually install it from within the live environment.
Ah, yes. I love that it does that because like instead of some like rinky-dink installer, it's just like already you're just in the operating system and you can just like choose to make
Yep.
it permanent.
And it's doing the nasty thing because it's scaled up again. Yes, so we are in. We have this little welcome thing that tells you various information about the things. You can launch the installer from here. So I'll minimize
I
that
like
for a
that. It's
second.
very friendly.
And yeah, you can open a terminal. Right now we're just in a kind of live environment. We're not actually going to write anything to the disk here because we haven't installed it. But if you wanted to, there's an install icon on the desktop, so you could do that.
Yeah,
We're
and
also
like it only takes a couple commands to install like the stuff that you want and update this. So if you wanted to just have this be like what you were running because you weren't worried about persistence, then like this you could essentially just stop here.
yeah, sure. Um, but because we're going to do the installation in a minute, do you want to just move on from this?
Yeah.
Okay. So if we
So that I mean, there you go. We started at Manjaro. Like that was it.
yeah,
We didn't install it, so it's not going to be persistent. But like we could install like packages now, so that we were able to like actually like like work with the tool that we wanted to work with, and not have to worry about the whole installation process we're about to go through on bare metal.
exactly. So the processes are pretty much the same if you wanted to install it in terms of on a virtual machine or on bare metal, apart from the initial sort of setup for the virtual machine and the initial setup for a USB stick. So get a USB stick. USB 3 will be faster if you have USB 3 on either side of what you're doing. Download Rufus.
Good old Rufus.
Yep. And if I'm not going to make it. Actually, I can't plug it in because my front panels are full. But you would plug this in, select your device, everything default, and select your ISO. It writes to the USB stick, and then you are ready to boot to it on your device.
And as an alternative to that, another thing that you can use if you're on, for example, like I think this works on Linux and Mac OS, or at least it works on Mac OS, is Etcher. Etcher is I actually have that open on my screen if you want to switch over real quick. Etcher is really, really simple. It's literally like 3 icons. You select the image you want to write, you select the target you want to write to, and then click Flash. And it does both flashing and verification. Really, really easy tool to use. So if you're on a Mac OS system, that's a great alternative.
Yep.
All right, back to James.
Right, so what I'm going to do is just plug this into my laptop here, which hopefully is still in a fixed itself state since the last time we tried to do this.
Ah, yes.
And
Spontaneous repair. My favorite
yes,
way for for an
exactly.
issue to be solved.
So I don't think it's gonna. Oh, it's gonna. I may mess with my camera just for a second here, but I don't think it's gonna show um, the boot menu. But here you'll probably get a black screen. Yeah, you'll get a. Oh no!
Hey, cool. I
Hold on.
mean,
Let me
not
let me
center.
fix the
But cool.
size there for a second. Sorry about that.
That's all right.
Man, why is it so huge? What the heck? This is like a. Anyhow. So yes, we can go through here, and I've already installed it onto this SSD, so that's what that is. But you should have something that says something about a USB drive, so that's my one right there with the Manjaro install media
I hate
on
to
it.
complain, but anybody on mobile still probably can't see that. Could you make it a little bit bigger? Like maybe 50% bigger? Appreciate it. That's so much more legible. Yes, thank you. Everyone on a phone, thanks you.
Okay, wonderful. So yeah, what we're going to do is just select the USB thing, and then the capture card is going to freak out for a second. Maybe? No, it's fine. Okay,
Wow.
so same thing as we had on the virtual machine. We
Oh, you
can
got a
select boot
countdown
with open
too.
source or proprietary drivers, and it selected automatically because I didn't do anything. But then maybe the capture card will freak out here. You never know. It's a fun core boot splash screen. Okay.
I
There we
remember
go.
I remember the installation for Manjaro going absolutely smoothly on my laptop. It was like kind of incredible.
Yeah, I tried it before the episode. It just works, which is shocking to say for an Arch derivative system. So again, as you can see, we have just booted in, just like that. It was that easy on bare metal, which is
And
pretty
fast too. Yeah.
unusual. So again, here you can. This is just like the virtual machine. We can start a terminal, do whatever, and yeah. Do you want to install it?
Yeah, let's install it.
Okay. So if we launch the installer, this is honestly like, I think, maybe I'm biased, but I think that this is nicer than Ubuntu. Okay, sorry,
It
once we
kind of
get back
is,
to
honestly.
Wi-Fi
Except for the
here.
self-destructing portion when you weaponize it, it's really, which I imagine Ubuntu would have issues too if you try to do something like that. It just
Yeah, I feel like that's more BlackArch repo at fault there than Manjaro itself.
mhm. Yeah, I really feel like the user experience on this is super clean and feels very well put together and planned out. This seems like someone who had like a moderate OCD would put together. It's just like no detail like is like clashing.
Yeah. So I just had to connect to Wi-Fi there. It would have installed, but maybe things will go a bit more normally this way. So look, we can select the location on a big map so it knows our time zone. How nice.
And it's graphical. How nice for people.
How nice. And look, we can select our locale graphically. How nice. Those are a lot of keyboard layouts, dang.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, UK took over a bunch of places. They all got slightly different keyboards, I guess.
So then we have all the different install options. So what you can do, this is really interesting, is you can actually shrink a partition for dual booting. So
Hmm.
one of the things that Manjaro actually has several guides for, I think it's usually a bit more manual than this if you're installing against Windows, but you can replace a partition or shrink a partition and then install alongside it. So Manjaro is really friendly for dual booting. It's what I did for a while. And it looks like, I haven't tried this graphically, but it looks like you can do it entirely graphically. But for what we're doing here, we're just going to erase everything else because it's another Manjaro test setup that I just did earlier. Or you can do it manually if you feel like it. I'll just leave this default because I don't know enough about swap files or swap partitions.
Yeah, I found that when I tried to install this, when I tried to install Manjaro as like a second Linux system to boot into, I was able to just shrink one that I'd allocated too much space into and just squeeze it right in there, and it was no issue at all. I didn't need to have any special knowledge to partition the disk properly, the way that we did with BlackArch.
Exactly. So here we have one interesting question, which is, do you want to log in automatically? Do you want to use the same password for your administrator account? Realistically, you probably shouldn't do that, but just for sake of simplicity, because this is a sort of walkthrough sort of thing, we can just do that because I'm going to nuke this after the episode. But in reality, that would be a bad thing to do, because then if anybody got your normal password, they could get like root access to your entire machine. Not good.
Yeah, I like that it lets you create like a lower privileged user right off the bat, as opposed to like the way that Kala used to default just like make you root.
Yeah, it'll still give you pseudo privileges, I think, by default, but yeah, lower privileged. And you can automatically install an
Office stuff.
Office thing,
Oh, cool.
which we probably won't do here because time, but yeah, so that's pretty nice.
I got a very nice sticker from them at the Linux convention in Pasadena. So yeah, no, LibreOffice. Thanks for the sticker.
Yeah, I like their software. So this is just a confirmation screen, so it's telling you what your keyboard layout is going to be, what your time zone is going to be set to, and the changes of your partitions. So there's an actual confirmation here so that you don't nuke everything accidentally, compared to BlackArch, which was just like no crying.
I love you were just mentioning that there's like kind of like gatekeeping like built into the BlackArch, like into the installer and into the documentation, where they're just like, listen, buddy, if you're not cool, don't even try it. If you don't know what we're talking about, don't ask. And it's like, you know, I'm joking, but like there was still like kind of this attitude where it's like, this is hard. If you don't like that, don't install it. Whereas Manjaro is just like, please try Manjaro. Like by comparison, it's just like so open and so friendly. So like really like this is, if people, you know, people always ask me what's my favorite like Linux distribution. Like Manjaro is probably very strongly in the running for my favorite Linux distribution, just because of how, for example, how easy it is to install.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. It's what I recommend to people if they're asking how to get into Linux usually. So
edgy, because then they can also brag to people that they run Arch and they're not lying.
nobody who like knows what they're talking about will actually say they run Manjaro, because the Arch people will give you they'll give you a hard time for running Manjaro.
Of course.
It's kind of funny.
Yeah.
But not all of them obviously. Like I run Arch and I tell people to run Manjaro, but the typical Arch user,
it's for like graphic user interfaces, that's very GUI of you.
Exactly.
It's like, okay.
So this will take a couple minutes, but this is, in theory, just going to work, which is really nice compared to the usual Arch install, where you would probably need to learn a bit about partitioning and maybe test yourself on a virtual machine. This is really, really easy, like up there with Ubuntu, if not better than Ubuntu, in my opinion.
Agreed. And if it was easier to import some of these weaponized like BlackArch repos, I'm sure some people in the comments on the stream might have a better idea of how to do this in a long-term fashion so that it doesn't cause the kind of problems that we're talking about. But really, for just user experience, installation experience, and just like being able to get people who are from another operating system like Windows to feel comfortable, you know, the commands are going to be a little bit different from Debian. So if you're coming from a Debian-based operating system, what are going to be some of the differences in an Arch-based system that beginners should expect or be anticipating when they move over to this?
Right, so the default package manager that you get is called Pacman, which you can kind of see a little Pacman symbol there. It's cute. But so I think there's a GUI version of this. Pacman is a CLI based package manager, but you can, I think Octopi is a graphical interface built on top of Pacman. So if you really want something that's really simple to use and you're kind of not comfortable with a command line interface, that's there pre-installed in Manjaro for you. But the difference is kind of on a Debian-based operating system like Ubuntu, you would say, you know, apt-get install, and on here it's pacman -S, then the package name is the...
and basically what you're saying is like package manager sync and then that package.
Yeah, exactly. And to update, it's not like apt-get update, apt-get install upgrade or whatever. It's just pacman dash capital SYU in one sort of block, which is I don't know. It's not that hard to get used to. The other option there is that there's the Arch user repository, which you can get tools that will just basically download an open source tool, build it locally through instructions, I guess, that are specified by the sort of setup, and it's super easy to do. We'll showcase it here in a bit once we get into.
Yeah, I noticed that also there's some other package managers I hadn't worked with before, like Snap, and I think Yum is another one that I ended up working with when I was on Manjaro, just because some packages were just supported on it, and it was super easy to install.
Yeah, I use Yay, which is a package manager for the Arch user repository. So it's done, just like that. So we can restart, and hopefully everything will work.
Wow, I love that screen.
Yeah,
Just like
great.
chaos commands.
Right. So the capture card is gonna freak out here for a second.
Beautiful.
Indeed. But
It'll be back.
that it will. Just like that. So if we then go to the boot menu, not manager, and I've unplugged the USB stick now.
Cool.
But
So
we
it's
can
not
then
trying to
go
live boot anymore?
Yeah, it's not there. But then we have a Manjaro install. And I guess it would probably work if you just selected the hard drive there, but we'll go with the actual boot entry. And see how it goes. So, core boot splash screen again.
Hey, does that mean that it's not doing that thing from before?
Yeah, it's working this time, which is impressive. Okay. Capture card is having a moment. It's I'm on the login splash screen right now.
Perhaps it thinks it's on another monitor. Oh no, core boot again.
Okay. Yeah, but that's not what actually... Okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to use the classic strategy of turning it off and on again. I'm going to unplug the capture card and plug in the capture card.
That's great. The one thing I always get when I try to do this is on Kali Linux, like if I have like a Raspberry Pi or something plugged in and I'm like booting it, like the operating system will see that I have like two displays, and like I'll have like a screen on one side that I can't see, and then another screen that I can't see that the capture card isn't getting. So just that also is a thing that happens sometimes.
Yeah, I'm not sure what it's playing at, to be honest with you. We'll see if that...
I mean, worst comes... Oh, okay, cool. Hey!
It's displaying it in a very funny...
Yeah, it could be worse.
Okay, well, I don't know. Capture card's having a second, but
No, it looks good.
that is not what my screen looks like. There is more off to the left. It is a normal aspect ratio, but I guess it's bigger for you guys, so whatever, that works. We are now in the desktop environment. It's installed. I'm going to quickly add a Wi-Fi network, which you can only see half of.
It's for the best. So that was dead simple. Like there really wasn't like much you could mess up. I guess like unless you had a different hard drive you didn't want to write over, and you need to be careful of that. But if you're just installing over, there's nothing else there, you don't care, and it's bare metal, like this just doesn't seem like you could mess it up very easily.
No, you'd kind of struggle to, and I'm not going to run this because it'll take a reasonably long time, but you could update by running that command, pacman syu, and I don't know, what's a package we can install that's in the normal Arch repository, or should we just go straight into the BlackArch?
Try try BetterCap.
BetterCap. Ah, yes, that's the other thing. With pacman, you need to run as sudo, and I have the creative password of Manjaro. I'll ask you to confirm, and hopefully that will just work, because, again, this is a really, really nice kind of... It's really easy to set up. I can't stress that enough, because it's easier than Manjaro in my opinion, but not Manjaro, easier than Ubuntu. But
sudo BetterCap. Wow. I just have to say that is a very quick setup for BetterCap because if you have to install that manually, it is quite annoying to do. So, wow, I like that. That's great. That's very special, and I enjoy how easy that is.
Nice. So, Arch things, BlackArch things rather.
Yeah. I
Okay,
mean that. Wait, so was that included in the official Arch repository, or have you?
that was in the official Arch
Oh,
repository.
I was trying to guess one that wouldn't be. Um, wow. Okay, I'm kind of
Or maybe
impressed that
maybe
that's
it's in the
included.
Manjaro version of that Arch repository. I
Ah,
think Manjaro has a couple changes, but
yeah, that could make sense.
maybe some additional things. But yeah. So if we were going to then weaponize our Manjaro config, Kody has an article that I am going to follow here, and it's really easy to do. So there's just 3 commands that you run to do this. So you curl OS, and I have to type this out manually because it's on my other machine. But do you want to? We can probably link the article, right? So that'll
Yeah,
be
yeah. So if you
helpful.
just Google Manjaro null byte, I wrote an article like I think 2 or 3 years, 3 years ago, on how to do this. It's super easy, and yeah, it's a really good guide to follow because it still works apparently.
Yeah, and I mean this is like an official kind of install system supported by BlackArch, not necessarily for Manjaro, but for existing Arch installations, which this basically is. So this is just downloading the sh file, and then we need to modify the permissions so that it can do the things.
So we're making it executable, right? Thank you.
Yeah. And then run it with administrator privileges. So sudo dot slash the file name,
And what type of file is that, James?
an sh file,
Which is what?
bash file,
Yeah, it's a bash file.
because we're on Linux, and that's what things are. Not, I don't know. What's the batch Windows equivalent?
Or like PS1.
Yeah, PowerShell. So this will just take a few seconds, and then
Cool,
we
and this
can.
installs like the crypto keyring so it can verify packages from the BlackArch repository. And then after that, you should be able to securely download packages from the BlackArch repository that are not included on the Manjaro or Arch user repository.
Yeah, exactly.
And this is also, again, the step where you've not done anything irreversible at this point. At this point, you're just like, just bringing in other sources. You haven't installed anything yet. But once you start installing packages, that's where down the line you might start getting conflicts. Like if they bring in like versions of something that something else needs or creates a second version of a particular library, that can start to mess this process up down the line. So currently not doing anything wrong, but in the next step, we're probably, potentially going to do something that eventually will cause issues.
You're too cautious, Kody. Live on the edge.
I know. That being said, I've run 3 of these into the ground, and I will run a 4th into the ground as well.
Wonderful. Okay, yeah. So this is just doing the keyring stuff really quick, and
Wow, look at all that math. Your computer's working so hard.
yeah. Goes fast because of the modded CPU. And it says it's ready. So, what was the package we figured out earlier that worked on it?
Here, get in.
Oh, that was the one that didn't work because Arch Linux is bad.
Aircrack NG.
Aircrack, yeah, Aircrack.
Although
So,
yeah.
Aircrack NG, you want to run that?
Yeah.
And just like that, Aircrack is installed. In theory, is that how you run it? Yeah.
Yep. Aircrack NG. Yeah. Cool. Awesome. Okay.
Wonderful.
So that does not seem too difficult. I mean, we've now weaponized the system. We have access to anything that will be in the BlackArch repository. So at this point, there's not really much else for us to do when it comes to like weaponizing it further. We just need to select the tools we want to install. But what's exciting is that BlackArch also makes this easier for us because we can select entire categories of tools to install and install them all at once. So if we really want to just absolutely arm this to the teeth, we can sync everything. And it will literally download the entire BlackArch repository and put all the tools on here, and it will make it ridiculous. And that is what I did. But if you want to be a little bit more conservative, then you can just select a category of tools, which I believe James will show us now.
Yeah, what was the command you said earlier to do that? It was pacman -so.
I do not remember. It was something.
Darn it, Kody. Told me I do. Maybe it's on here.
It's
I think it
definitely,
was that.
yeah, it's in the article. It was gripping through something. So it was sudo pacman -sg pipe grip BlackArch.
Yeah, so this is just going to show us all the BlackArch categories. Grep is not a command. That's correct. You're right. And so as you can see here, you have all the kind of BlackArch.
There's so many
categories.
drones, automobiles, spoofing, scanning, proxy, denial of service, disassembling, mobile malware. There's just honeypots. It's great. There's just everything you could want for Christmas.
Exactly. So if you want to install one that it's reasonably small, the steganography one is pretty. It's not huge like some of the other ones. So all you would have to do is just sudo pacman -s BlackArch stego.
Stego.
And it's asking which ones do you want to install?
Friggin' all of them, of course.
All of, obviously.
And it's nice that it lists the tools that you're installing too, so you can literally just scroll up and try running one of those to make sure that it has successfully installed it.
Yeah. So this will just take a couple of seconds, and then if we have time, we can quickly run through how the Arch user repository works.
Yeah, and yeah, that would be cool. We can also, were you going to show how to install the Hunator?
Yeah, with the Arch user repository, because it's on
Okay,
there.
all right, good. Just wanted to make sure we didn't deprive our users of, the Chickenator.
Gotta plug the Chickenator.
So again, this is not just installing one tool, but we can select entire categories where if we want everything in the BlackArch repository related to steganography, this is going to go ahead and pull it down and install it for us right here. So of course, I usually do this for wireless tools. I'll focus on like Bluetooth stuff, Wi-Fi stuff, scanning, networking, and anything else related to that. And that's usually where I start arming up a system and making sure it has the tools to scan networks, navigate them, and do bad stuff on networks when you find yourself somewhere interesting. So,
yeah, the reason I picked the steganography category is just because it only has 11 tools in it, and some of the categories in here have like many
they're
tools.
Absolutely massive. Yeah.
So this will go a bit quicker, but this laptop is on Wi-Fi, so it's not the fastest in the world.
Yeah, still, this is for people that are used to installing stuff with like a Debian-based system like Kali Linux. This is really nothing especially new. The commands might look slightly different, but the general process for installing stuff is still just the same.
Yeah, it's not that hard compared to, as long as you as long as you know that you're not using Aptitude and you're using Pacman. It's fine.
I also find that the error messages you get with Manjaro are much easier to figure out what's going on. You can copy and paste them into Google, and generally the community is pretty good about like getting beginners the help they need to get started, provided the question's reasonable. So I found that when I ran into problems with Manjaro, it generally wasn't as devastating or annoying as when I did the same with the other operating systems. One thing I'll also mention is like we haven't updated or upgraded the system, we just installed it. So it's somewhat likely that some of these tools would not work properly right now. Or it, just because like we're downloading presumably the latest version of them that we just got from the Arch or the BlackArch repository, and if we haven't upgraded our system, there might be older versions of libraries and stuff that might interfere with it.
Yeah. So one of the tools in the steganography category that we just downloaded is PNG check. So assuming that all worked, yeah. So we have that tool installed.
Awesome.
And that works. I don't have anything set up to actually test it with, but yeah, you saw the category installed, so that's how you would do that for if you wanted to install any other particular category.
That's beautiful.
So then, as a final thing to go through, the Yay package manager, and that stands for yet another yogurt. I don't know why, but yeah. So it's for the Arch user repository. It's written in Go, and what it's basically going to do is yank kind of the source code and build it, and you can download the dependencies automatically, which is pretty cool. So right now, what we need to run, I'm just going off of their GitHub. So just to search yay GitHub, yay YAY, and it's pretty easy to follow along. The installation is just 4 lines. So this is telling us to download the build requirements that you need to actually build yay. Need dash dash needed, sorry, and a sudo. So sudo pacman sync needed git base devel, and all of them.
Oh, it worked. Good.
Yes.
Only 200 megabytes.
Exactly. Tiny, really. A small price to pay. And then what we can do in a minute is tell this to go get the Hunator, download the stuff it needs to build it, and the Hunator source code, build it, and that would be that. So what we do, this one you don't need to use sudo for, so what you do is yay-s Hunator. What do you mean?
Wow.
Ah, because I didn't complete the install process. I'm really smart because I just installed the base things. I skipped ahead, sorry. So we need to actually, clone the yay words.
Repository?
The yay source code,
Oh,
the repository, which you use that to do. So that's going to clone it, and you can see it there on the desktop. And then if we cd our way into that directory, and we run the command make pkg-si, it will build it and add it to the
What
path.
the hell is that?
Listen,
Right.
man. I just run
I just
the
work
commands.
here.
I vaguely know what's going on. So it's basically what you're doing is you're downloading the yay source code and then just building that.
Okay.
So one of the things that I'm think it needs is Go, because yay is built on Go, so it's going to need the stuff to compile itself.
Only 559 megabytes.
Exactly.
A small price to pay.
A small price to pay for being able to build Go packages. I'll resist throwing shade on Go during your...
Yeah, what's with like Go versus Rust people? Like, what do you guys like? What is it?
They have some people say that they have a similar kind of target. So some people are like, Rust is better, and some people are like, Go is better. I don't write Go, but I don't care because I haven't used Go, so I don't feel like I can comment. If that makes sense.
Very diplomatic of you, James, on behalf of you and all Rust people.
But yeah, some people are very vocal in either direction.
Yes, I know. It's just like, yeah, but it seems like people that work with Rust are very, very happy about what they do. But I also see a lot of interesting tools coming out in Go.
Yeah, lots of people love Rust. I mean, I love Rust, but yes. So then now we can actually do the yay-s Unator. And it's going to ask if we want to remove the dependencies after we install it, which, why would you ever want to remove the Rust compiler? It's the best thing ever. So no. Just default and default here. Proceed with the installation. Another small price to pay, 500 megabytes.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So while we've been talking, you've basically installed over a gigabyte of software.
Pretty much. Actually, I think that may not be true. There's the I, which might mean mega something else. Because I don't see why it wouldn't just be MB if it was megabytes. Maybe I'm wrong there, but it's not megabits, obviously, because, or maybe it is. Who knows?
So, of course, this is now installing what we need to use the Andromeda deauthor or the D1 Mini using the Wi-Fi deauthor. If you just want to plug it into your computer and get it running without needing to know some random serial monitor or relying on the web interface so you can do some of the fancy newer stuff, then this is what you need to do to just get started working with microcontrollers that can hack Wi-Fi on Manjaro, which is admittedly pretty simple and straightforward.
Yeah, so now it's actually building it. It's pulled the Hunator code from the Git repo. And in a second here,
installing heck.
Yeah, there's a Rust's kind of ecosystem is pretty interesting because you may like use one crate, which is a library basically, when you're writing a program, and then that'll have like a bunch of other crates. So you get this interesting sort of tree, and you eventually have many dependencies potentially. I don't even remember what heck was for, to be honest with you. I think it's a dependency of another crate we use. I don't think we actually use a crate called heck. We do use a crate called clap though. Clap is for handling the arguments in the program. It's a library for that. So
the suspense.
There we go. So it
awesome.
built it. And now I'm going to run this with sudo just so I don't run into issues with using serial ports. And if I take my Andromeda author and I plug this into the USB port.
Looking good. Oh my god! Maximize the bird. I'm sorry, this is too small. You're doing our audience a severe injustice.
A severe injustice. I have to be mindful that your full screen is different than mine.
Max chicken! There we go. Thank you, James. That's so good. Oh,
there you go.
It's good to see. So now you can hack Wi-Fi, you can scan for devices, you can do, maybe if the developer of the Hunator ever gets around to it, you could even trigger some sort of program on your computer to run when a device is in range. That'd be cool. But overall, it seems like it didn't take much work to use this external piece of hardware running the Wi-Fi dauthor v3 with a freshly installed Arch operating system that's friendly for beginners and easy to use.
Yeah, so obviously this is a bit slower than if you were just going to download a binary from the GitHub release page, but you get the knowledge that you've actually built the code that's on the GitHub, and it's, I don't know, maybe not some malicious person putting up a infected binary or something, which seems unlikely, but I guess it's a possibility. And it'll work on your system because you're compiling it on your system. So that's the idea there.
I think that's all we have time for today. But coming away from Manjaro and basically having installed this in almost every possible way, we ran it live, we ran it as a virtual machine, we ran it as a bare metal install, we even went through the installation process, and then, oh yes, thank you for getting Thomas in there, I was about to suggest.
He knows. He came up already.
It's the wrap-up section.
He came up a minute ago.
So, like, it just seems like we were able to do so much stuff with Manjaro in 45, 50 minutes, where we were literally still messing around with BlackArch, just getting it installed, until pretty much the very end. So if you are a beginner, or if you're someone who's getting into security and you want to try an Arch-based system and you want a good user experience, I think this is it. We really haven't tried anything else in our series that just feels this easy, aside from obviously Ubuntu or some other project that people have heard of. So if you haven't heard of Manjaro and you're looking for a new operating system, again, I'm going to say this is probably it, because it really works well and is a kind of a pleasure to install compared to some of the other operating systems. Now, some other people might like Parrot Security OS just because it compares so well to Debian based system. I mean, it is Debian based. So if you've used Kali, which is Debian based, then the commands will transfer over. But my argument would be that Arch has a lot of advantages. It also runs really well on systems with very few resources, I found. It's just a great lightweight operating system. And again, it supports things like gaming and some other really well thought out productivity things that some other operating systems just might not support as well. That being said, Parrot Security OS is a great choice, but frankly, I would say check out Manjaro, if you're looking for something new, because it's so similar to Kali Linux that aside from being beautiful and having a better install process and slightly more tools at the cost of having less support, there's not enough differences to really wow someone who wants to learn something new about Linux. And I think that you will learn new stuff about Linux using an Arch-based distro.
Yeah, you definitely will. And again, like even if you're not after this for a sort of security-based operating system, it's a really good. They're aiming to replace sort of Windows and Mac, and they are doing a good job. I don't feel like everything is quite there yet, but they're, in my opinion, the kind of best alternative to mainstream operating systems right now. So if you have something that can be your daily driver really easily and also can be weaponized like this, then I feel like that's a really good position to be in terms of
Absolutely.
operating system.
Yeah, so I really encourage you guys to check this out, see if you like it, and if you have ideas for other operating systems for us to test out on the show, we've gotten all sorts of great suggestions. Sigint OS was a suggestion. There was also, I think we've heard like Pen2, like some other ones that are specifically for pen testing. But really, we're open to suggestions, and these are a lot of fun for us to try out. So if you have some ideas in the chat, or if you're watching this later and you want to drop an idea in the comment below, then please let us know, because these are great and we hope to do more of them. Well, thank you, James, for showing us how people can get started with Manjaro. And again, I'm very impressed with this operating system. Hopefully, we'll be able to review some other ones that stack up against Manjaro, but I feel like it's set the bar pretty high, frankly.
It has, yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, that's all we have for this episode. If you want to check out some of our other great stuff, make sure to check out the Varonis brand channel, which also has our sometimes co-host Killian on with the threat update, which will show you guys how real companies are weathering attacks, how they basically figure out what's going on and respond, and give you an idea of what they really face on a daily basis. Also, you can check out hackingwithfriends.com to sign up to be notified when we do anything special and new. And you can make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel if you want to be notified when we go live. We have moved our Tuesday episodes up so we can get more sleep. It seems like that was pretty popular the last time we did it, so we're going to keep doing it. And yeah, we will see you guys next time. Bye.